As you may know, I am a absolute MMO fanatic. The reason why I am speaking to you right now is because of World of Warcraft. There's a lot of lore there. We won't get into Koroto lore. But the reason why I'm speaking to you right now is World of Warcraft, okay? I am very excited. So let's watch it.
So, on my journey to Riot's headquarters, I had a chance to talk to some of Riot's teams. And of course, one of those teams was Riot's MMO team. And while it was really awesome to talk to them, luckily we even had some time to do an interview. Unfortunately, the interview was recorded in one of their meeting rooms, which meant that it was very echoey. I mean,
if anyone's doing audio work, this helped me one time when my mic messed up. People are like very against AI and everything, right? But like there is this Adobe tool. I forget what it's called, but if you ever have bad audio, you need to clean it up. I know this is a complete random tangent, but like if you ever need to clean up audio, just write like Adobe Audio, and you can throw in like a completely unusable bit of audio, and it will clean it up. It'll sound so good. It's magic. It's magic. I love AI.
Can we just like go one by one to like introduce yourselves?
Yeah, you throw this sort of thing in there, it's gonna be great.
Sure. I'm VJ Tucker. I'm the EP of the MMO.
Fortunately, however, the world does have the technology to salvage the audio, and so the final result should be totally fine. Just
I guess that's what he did.
It is not a studio quality. It is literally my laptop and a USB microphone in a square room. And of course, since it is hard to get some info on Riot's MMO, I tried to push them with the questions a little bit.
Good.
Just to see what we can learn.
Good.
But I knew they wouldn't
Like,
be able to talk about anything.
I haven't been following it extremely closely because it's like so early, but I'm pretty sure like basically nothing about it is known at this point. It's just that like it's in development. There is a solid team behind it. That's about it.
Specifics. So my questions had to be as broad as possible. But even so, I was still trying to walk
You gotta
on the
fish for
edge.
those specifics.
Sometimes you'll see the devs laughing about the fact that I am very close to the line, and 3 times it actually happened. I asked a question which had to be cut out.
Okay.
But the follow-up conversations were fine. So be ready for the fact that sometimes there will be some edits and cuts and it will break the pacing. But ultimately,
fine.
I am
We
pretty
just want
happy
info.
with what I was able to put together. And honestly, I had an absolute blast talking to these guys.
That's good to hear.
Can we just like go one by one to like introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm VJ Tucker. I'm the EP of the MMO.
I'm Mark Yenner. I'm the game design director for the project. Greg Fallis, art director.
And I'm Ant Reynolds-Ladai. I'm a writer. So, I might have made an oopsie. Strong start. I released the video. Kind of started an avalanche of hype out of nowhere.
Wait,
How did you guys
hold
think
up.
of it? Was it?
Is he wearing pajamas? Just noticed. Is that? I mean, my type of energy. I'm not gonna lie.
You know, how much damage have I caused on accident?
Not even close. We thought it was awesome. We immediately like shared it among the team. Like we watch it for inspiration as a reminder of like what player hype is for the space. Like more than anything, you raise the bar for us, which is awesome.
We love it, but we started to sweat a bit. You know? Pretty good.
I mean,
So like up
like
until
you know, it's like literally the most expensive type of game you can make with literally one of the most dedicated player bases and you're like one of the biggest companies in the world to do this sort of stuff. No pressure. I'm sure it's gonna be fine.
that point where we're in like a safe space where like you know you were kind of like fine because you know like people knew it was happening but no one really took
You were
it
DL, we're on the
seriously.
DL, yeah.
Have you actually taken any of the feedback you got so far into consideration? Like I don't know how many people really gave feedback. I mean, people did give feedback on the ML. Did you like take something into consideration already?
I mean, there's not much
we
to really
always-
give feedback on, I guess.
That's one of the most important things that we can do is listen to our players along the way and figure out when we should respond and integrate it in and when we shouldn't.
Right.
That's the hard part of our jobs. But definitely ignoring the feedback is us failing.
So I mean, you know, talking like
This is one of those one of the
factions,
most
race-
complicated things with MMOs. I know I'm going off on many tangents, but this is something I'm very passionate about. The thing with MMOs is that you don't really want to give the players everything they want, because MMO players will always figure out the path of least resistance, right? And the path of least resistance will often be very, very degenerate. I'll put it that way, right? So if you can farm a single dungeon, like 3 mobs in a small circle, and the gameplay will literally be killing 3 mobs, running out, running back in, killing 3 mobs, people will do it. So, you know, you sort of need to strike a balancing act of not making things like that, because it's like giving them everything they want. while still sort of retaining them by not really alienating them through like some weird shenanigans, sort of like has happened with WoW with a lot of systems.
Stuff like that, because you probably have to have an idea and stick to it. Something that you also take into consideration, even though it might go against your basic idea. Roll these answer.
Here you go. Like, you hear, you know, every potential player wants something, and there's, you know, hopefully millions of them, and everyone wants something different. And so it's impossible for us to
There are millions of us.
give every person what they want. But, you know, really often it's about, there's a lot of similar themes, right? And when we reduce it to the sort of core of like, what is the fantasy that people are looking for? What is the experience? We can then, you know, take that and say, what's the best version of that that we can deliver? And even better, we're not just going to give people what they say they want. We're going to try and figure out how we can over deliver. How can we get something that blows their mind?
This is like, he says this, right? And it sort of seems like, well, of course that's what you're saying. But like, try to take his shoes. They are currently, like, the problem with MMOs currently has been everything is a WoW killer, everything is a WoW clone, or it's a mix of both. They're trying to make something that will define a generation for MMOs. What they're doing right now is literally the impossible. They are making something out of complete nothing, and they are potentially also fighting against the prospects of like VR really picking up, because this thing is still years away, right? So by the time this thing comes out, they may be dealing with completely different technology, and they need to account for that. What they're doing right now is nothing short of impossible. So if they manage to over-deliver, well then, I'll be playing that for the next 15 years, just like I've been playing WoW.
That like is also, oh my God, that's exactly what I wanted. You know, that's the dream.
It's super important. Not just giving people what they expect, or just like going, you got that, and this as well, and this. It's like, that's really important. That's the soul of what we're trying to do. Is like ultimately, like, we're in service of trying to realize the dreams of our players, but that's not always exactly what
You're gonna need a BCI for that. If you want to realize my dream, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to plug me into the Matrix.
they're asking for. Sometimes it is about extracting the essence. It's like, what is the magic that you're seeing that we haven't seen yet? And how do we create it? And ultimately, I personally think that's Riot's superpower, especially like with League. We see it with Valorant. We see it with our games, how we respond to players. And the one thing we definitely can't do is dump our head in the sand until we're shit.
Yeah.
And hopefully you get a little taste of that with, you know, what we should.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I saw some things. I'm kidding. Literally, if I turn the camera like a little few inches, I'm gonna get nuked. Don't do it. So, one thing that's a big topic that I don't know if you can answer is, you know, the big old talk
Are they
about
gonna
like
show us?
factions and races. More specifically, like separating the player base, because there are some MMOs who give you the freedom of like, you know, you can play with anyone. You can, you know, there are no barriers. And then there are others who actually like split the community very specifically into like, you know, maybe two parts that are battling.
This is something that I don't think will ever be replicable, like WoW did it. Like way back in the day, WoW was literally the game that everyone was playing. Like if you were an MMO gamer, you were playing WoW. So there were just so many people there, and like splitting it into these two different camps, the internet was so different back then, and splitting people into two different camps actually added character to the game. Nowadays, I think splitting people up is literally just a bad idea across the board. I don't think there should be any barriers with playing with whoever you want. I think you can have plenty of game mechanics where they're sort of, like if you have factions, or if you have like certain races, or however you want to split them, right? There can be some sort of conflicts and everything like that from an RPG perspective, but I think you should be always able to play with whoever, whenever. No, actually, no, not whenever, because I hate scaling design. I hate scaling in video games, and MMO should never have scaling. I hate it. So not whenever, but you know. So I don't think people should be spread up at all. I also don't think there should be servers. I think everyone should be playing on the same thing. Like the questions, the usual MMO questions of what server are you, what faction are you, blah blah blah. No.
What's your like very vague general idea without confirming anything on like this kind of
I have
thing?
thoughts on this one.
Yeah.
So there's this perfect saying I saw in one of the, you know, a developer talk from one of the Zelda developers, which is, you know, you can't just deliver exactly perfect realism or whatever. You're trying to shape something that feels
Exactly.
real,
Exactly.
feels believable, but is like actually making the thing you want. Right. And so like there are things that we want. We don't want, you know, me and my best friend, we don't want people not to be able to play with each other. Obviously, that's like a bad, you know, that's a problem. But we also want to, you know, maybe capture the spirit and the kind of, you know, one of the iconic elements of the League of Legends IP, where you've got this complex, you know, factions, and there's...
I literally don't know anything about the League of Legends lore, unfortunately, so I can't really say much on that. But like what he's saying right now is perfect. Like the fact that he's saying they don't want to split people up, but they want to have the identity of that, right? So that's basically what I mean. If you can play together, but there's still the sort of background lore angle, and maybe you can even stretch this to like, oh, me partying up with these certain people sort of gives me a certain reputation, right? Or something like that. There's a lot of friction there that can be there, and sort of make things fun, while still not disrupting gameplay. At the end of the day, that's really the only thing that really matters, right? Lore is cool, but like if people have a hard time playing your game, I mean...
You know, there's a lot of shades of gray, and there's a lot of interesting conflict, and there's a lot of, you know, kind of ways that you or someone else might relate to different elements of it. And so we just try and take all of those factors, the things we want, the things that we want to be true in the experience or in the thematic or in the IP, and find a combination of them that like
for example, I think if you were to spread people up, and I also think this is sort of a dubious topic, right? But let's say, again, I don't know the League lore, but let's say you had 4 factions and each of them had a capital city, right? And then there was one shared capital city. So if you were like one of these factions and you enter the opposite city, right? So you're obviously marked as an outsider, right? But you can still enter it, you can still do everything there, but perhaps there is some additional friction there, right? So it sort of keeps the identity, but it doesn't impose any like hard walls. That's what I want. Do not limit people. Like, that's literally what WoW has been doing for the past, like, what, 6 years now? Removing barriers.
Yep.
You want all those things that people love about our world, like the conflicts that are already there and the rivalries and stuff. You want to play that through. You want to see that. But you also don't want to, like, lock people into, like, one side, I guess.
Yes.
And that's really our job.
Not confirming anything.
That's a perfect example, because there's like, we talk about like 100 of these problems every day, right? It's like, there's just always so many things, there's always trade-offs, but it's like you just try to take the pieces together, find a way to make it work, and you know, when we do it well, you see the result and you're like, oh yeah, that's great. You know,
I think that, like, maybe this is me reading into this way too much, but I think this is basically a confirmation that yes, we're not locking people into like 2 or 3 choices.
And you know, and the game is good, and you know, it's fun to play or something like that.
The general talk is always about, like, you know, when the classic WoW came out, that one ignited the passion for like the very old school MMOs. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting how when classic WoW came out, it like once again became the king of MMOs. And like,
this is wild to me, by the way. Like, people say, oh my god, classic WoW is killing modern World of Warcraft, right? Or something like that. It's still the same game. Like, it's all made by Blizzard, right? At the end of the day, is like, if classic WoW were to really, because I mean, obviously they have all the numbers, right? So if classic WoW is like hugely popular, like, it's just gonna bleed into modern WoW all over again, right? Even though they're 2 very different games. So it's just a good thing. And I think classic WoW did basically, like, the most important thing of classic WoW for me is that it showed that there are still people who will return to MMOs when there is the right one, you know? Because a lot of people have been saying, oh, the MMO genre is dying out. Well, it's largely because there really haven't been that many good games. Like, every other MMO that comes out is a pay-to-win, let's just say, not great game.
Like, all the innovations that came from, you know, the other MMOs weren't really enough to, like, you know, maybe give the MMO genre actually more value.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
like, WoW, modern WoW right now is exactly what I mean by like imposing barriers, but sort of, you need to make the friction in the game feel valuable, right? And not annoying. And modern WoW has sort of taken away a lot of that friction in terms of like making parties, finding groups, just like general content. A lot of the friction that was once there with Classic, where you sort of needed to interact with people and like sort of the actual MMO sphere really developed, is just not in the game. With Classic WoW, it is there, you know.
What I got from this general idea, you know, is like you're trying to make like a mix of like staying true to the core idea of MMOs while iterating in some ways.
I think it's really important that we look at what is working in the market, and then also evolve the expectations to see where we're going. And if you look at where WoW started, like classic MMO, I think all of us played many hours of classic WoW. And then you look at how the genre evolved over the course of post-classic WoW era, they were all chasing WoW. And so they were all looking at one specific...
Exactly what I said. That is the problem. Every single MMO since WoW has been either a WoW killer or a WoW clone, neither of which have turned out to be right. FF14, closest thing to ever get to a proper WoW killer at this point.
Thing and trying to make a better version of that thing.
Like, there's a reason why there is a joke. The WoW killer will be WoW itself, because it will literally just die out, you know?
And now what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, like, okay, what went right during that period, and what has changed in the games industry and our players' expectations up until that point, and look at both of those lenses and craft something that feels like it's the right evolution of it. So I think ultimately many people in the industry are seeing similar things, and so we're actually hoping that we can learn from some of the other games that launch in the meantime. But we do think it's going to have some changes and evolutions to that formula without completely throwing it out just for the sake of it.
Which, by the way, they're literally doing the impossible. They're making something completely new.
Personal take. I actually love the idea that the game has dedicated servers, because one thing that happened in WoW later on is at the moment they gave us like random matchmaking and stuff like that. Is
Wait, hold up.
Just personal take. I actually love the idea that the game has dedicated servers, because one thing that happened in WoW later on is at the moment they gave us like random matchmaking and stuff like that. Is that was a breaking point where if you are an asshole on a server, it didn't matter really.
I don't want. I don't. No. I do not want designated servers. I want one mega server. That is literally what I've always thought an MMO should be. The reason why servers exist is because of technology. It's literally the only reason why servers exist, and that is also the reason why sharding exists. Literally, the only reason why these things exist are technological limitations. If they can figure out how to have everyone on a single realm or server, doesn't really matter how you call it, I want that. Like, I want the server community to be the community, right? So if your reputation is bad, then your reputation is bad across the board. It doesn't need to be on a server called, I don't know, Koroto's Wondrous Wisdom Realm 3.0. Second, when I spend time at the game, I should earn items and no one else can get it without working hard like me. Well, I mean, that again, like, that's a careful balancing act, right? Because MMOs, the thing with working hard and getting stuff is sort of a big barrier to entry in some cases, right? So you want to have certain pieces of catch-up, but you don't want to have catch-up that invalidates everything you've done, which is the problem with modern WoW. Right now, the most efficient way to play World of Warcraft is play the start of the expansion to see the new content, wait like 2 years, and play the last patch of the expansion. Literally the most efficient way if you want to get everything in the game, right? You don't want that. You want the world to be a living, breathing thing where you always want to log on and do something. That has been the core appeal of MMOs for me. So it's a very careful balancing act in terms of like making people work for something and then sort of making it easier to get. But I get what you're saying. I definitely get what you're saying.
Never know, you know, nothing really happened to you, but if you are on a dedicated server and you behave badly,
like, again, dedicated servers. Also, what happens if your server dies? You just need to move. And then, like, what happens then? Then you have to have these realm transfers, and like, well, okay, well, now you're a complete like tourist basically in the new realm. I don't want realms. Just give me one big server. Just make like EU, just one server. They're probably not going to do like EU and US cross region, right? I don't think we're past that stage yet. But like,
people know it about you, and it kind of like forms a really cool community. But it's kind of interesting that these days, I don't think there is a single MMO that actually has this whole structure.
Yes,
that's
yes.
the thing.
That is also a problem. Like, the internet has just evolved, and people really don't care. Like, we have things like Discord, right? So you literally just find people to play with, and you never actually talk in the game. You literally just talk on Discord.
I think Mark nailed it early on when we were talking about trade-offs. This is like, ultimately, you can build games in different approaches, but they have really different trade-offs about that sense of identity and the sense of community that gets created. But then when you start to commoditize human interactions, and like you're the same as any other bot that's walking by me, then you lose a lot of that. Mega Server also has some risk-on approaches. We actually have
another thing. World of Warcraft, doing world quests, even like the elite ones where you need multiple people are just NPCs. Click a button, join with random people. Sometimes, like, when people aren't on, it's just annoying. Literally just NPCs that don't show up. Like, a huge problem they need to figure out.
I have an engineer that worked on Guild Wars 2 and designed a lot of the Mega Server work. It has some of the flaws and risks in that space. And the one thing that we definitely don't want to do is try and solve these solutions for absolutely everybody. We do want to have opinionated takes that have some trade-offs, but a lot of that essence of community and people feeling important and actually having these interactions matter with other people, those are values that we're excited to chase.
I would like to return to a place where, like, your name is, like, actually very, very important in the community. Like, if you are everyone should know about it. If you are a cool blacksmith, everyone should know about it. If you are an absolute giga chad who carries people through the dungeons, everyone should know about it. Like, we need these sorts of player reputations, because that is why we play MMOs. We want to be that guy.
I'm not gonna go into like
That's the fun part.
races and classes. I think that's a very much dead end that we can't really talk about. But when it comes to the world, you probably did take into consideration the scale of the world and like how you're gonna approach
Make it big. Make it big. I do not want a theme park MMO. Give me a world where travel is actually something I need to think about. I hate modern WoW in the sense... Actually, no. Dragonflight is really good in that sense, right? Because Dragonflight maps are, like, very big because they gave us flying right off the bat. I want a huge map, and I don't want this, oh, I'm going to go from location A that has a name and everything, and I'm going to go to location B where there's, like, another quest hub, and I hand everything in, and everything is just, like, handcrafted. No. Give me, like, a huge forest where there's literally nothing. Literally just a forest. Just a cool-looking forest that I need to get through. I know people will be annoyed that you have to travel, but that is what you're playing.
leaning more towards
That's my
like, segmenting the
wish.
world. I kind of like play
I
the
want a
safe
huge
route
world.
where you have a lot of open spaces, or
Yes.
are you ready to like round up like a piece of the content and like ship it in its entirety? You don't even have a question you can talk about it all. What's your approach to like, you know, the world at launch?
Ultimately, one of the
Also, if they do a huge open world with like just completely vast hills and whatnot, if they do player housing, which I think they should do, every single MMO following this point, like the only thing I know about Final Fantasy, right? Again, I only played until like level 60, and then I quit because it was too good. That's the story of Final Fantasy. But like everything I know from Final Fantasy is that so many stories come out of people trying to get houses, right? And I think that is something that is so cool about MMOs. If you have to save up with your buddies to buy a house, and then you get the house, and then you can get like furniture for the house, that is so cool. That is so cool. So if they do like open vast hills, and you find like this little plot of land with a nice little house on it, and your buddies save up and you buy it, that is an MMORPG experience right there.
Things for us is to realize the world of Runeterra that exists in our players' hearts. We are those people. Like we want to be in the world, and we want to see it, and we want to experience it. The path for this MMO in the long term will have that full world of Runeterra realized. So for us, it's just a question of how we get there, what the steps are, whether we start small, whether we start broad. We have some takes about where we want to go, but we have our North Star of like that full version of Runeterra, and we know we're going to get there. So it's just a question of the steps along the way.
I have two more questions. One is when it comes to Riot, they always have like a very specific, almost specific artistic style, where it's like,
Oh yeah, I love Riot's art style. Honestly, I think like people get way too caught up with realistic art styles. I don't know what this obsession recently has been. It's like anything in Unreal 5. Look at how good it looks, right? And people are like, oh my god, I'm gonna make my thing photorealistic now. You do realize stylized graphics are a thing for a reason, because they're timeless. I want them to make it stylized.
very stylized, very cartoony, but not exactly cartoony.
It's sort of realistic, sort of stylized. Also, they're giving each other weird glances. Copy paste city like Amazon MMO. The Amazon MMO, you're talking about New World, right? I don't like New World. New World's design, New World's vibe, everything about New World is not for me. I was really interested in potentially playing it because it was made by Amazon, right? And with these MMOs, my thought process is very simple. Who is making it? How much money do they have? Who's the publisher? Those are the three questions I need. Publisher will answer, is it pay to win? AKA, is it worth my time? Who is making it is literally a question of, can they realistically make an actual MMO? And how much money do they have is, how long can this thing realistically lose money before they just like drop it completely? You know? Because I am looking for the next MMO. That is what I've been doing ever since I started playing World of Warcraft. That's why I'm saying, if this game kills WoW, I'll be happy. And I have like 30,000 hours in WoW.
Is it like is it something that you want to stick to in general? Do like very style rather than realistic? Is like the classic stylized style on the table for the MMO?
Hopefully I can say it's Jesus.
I don't know what you're gonna say.
So we will be familiar, but something unique.
All right.
It works.
Okay, it's a very sus answer.
It's a big damn shame that you can't see the stuff that he's working on, because it's so good.
Last question that I think we can talk about is
TLDR,
how did this project-
TLDR, I think they should be stylized. That's it. They should be like semi-realistic stylized graphics.
start? Because usually at Riot, all the big things start as passion projects, be it, Game Modes on League, EFD, really, Legends of Runeterra. Well, it's all like passion projects. How did the MMO project even start?
I think the fairest way to say it is that massive parts of this company have been dreaming of making this game for our players for a long time.
I think this is something people don't realize. I think most companies at some point in time have wanted to make an MMO. You know why? Because they have subscription services and people play them for decades. If you can make a good MMO, it is the easiest money of all time. Like in terms of the long term, right? The problem is just making the thing.
Meryl trolled the world by asking whether an MMO should exist. The reason I came to Riot 7 years ago was to make an MMO. I would say different versions of like this space, what we've been thinking about and moving it forward, have existed in all of our hearts for a very long time.
I've been
And
like
eventually,
MMOs
I know.
Actually, that is a good question. I said a subscription services, but I don't think we even know what the monetization model will be, right? Because all of Riot's games are free. And I have always been of the opinion that the best monetization model for an MMO is a subscription. Because that means there will be... Because, like, people say cosmetics in an MMO, not a big problem, right? You don't care. The shop cosmetics, no one cares about. I sort of think they harm the reputation of the game. Not really the reputation, sort of the vibe of the game. You know, because like if you have cool stuff on the store, then everything in game is sort of devalued by default. So I don't really know. I would be happy to pay a subscription to not have cosmetics on the store. But like we live in 2023, so let's not joke ourselves.
Eventually, we just all started to get a bunch of those people together. And we're like, now is the time. We've got to make that investment. And obviously, I can't tell you any dates or people, but it's been something that I think all of us have been chasing for a really long time.
And players have just been asking for it for such a long time. It's just like, gotta listen to that.
Yeah,
we're
Obviously the magic when it's just like, MMO win.
Yeah. One of the things I really do appreciate, though, like transparently speaking, is that the thing that we know about Riot, like one of the top line values, is we're not going to ship something that's perfectly fine. And so it took us a little while to get to the point where we're willing to start the project, but it was waiting until we're like, okay, now we have enough with the work on lore. We have enough in terms of the right people that is like, now is the time to finally make this and do it right. That was the thing that held off, is that we're like, company wasn't at the right place, the people weren't at the right place, the IP wasn't at the right place. Once we get all of those, Meryl's like, we need to do this thing. The thing that is most important to us really is that we make something that is exceptional, that is worthy of our players and the dreams that they have, and that it's okay that it takes a while.
Right.
That's the biggest risk, is that we're like, hey, we're doing this thing.
It's gonna come out in like 2035.
And people are like, it's been 6 months, why haven't you shipped the thing yet? And it's like, well,
Oh
I
no.
don't know. We're in service of all of you. We're in service of trying to make the best thing for you, and sometimes a little fire under our asses to get it out the door isn't a bad thing.
No pressure, but the Riot MMO right now is probably the most anticipated one in the market right now.
No pressure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's this or Ashes. Actually, no. I think Ashes of Creation is like a huge thing, but I don't think really the general population knows about it yet. But I think Ashes of Creation has a very good chance to be successful. The Riot MMO, everyone knows about it because it's Riot. And Riot, like, again, I don't play many of their games, but I know all of their games are very well received, generally.
I don't know. I feel like we've got the people who
No
are
pressure.
at least going to rise to the challenge and fight that fight.
I mean, you all said many times that the team is really stacked.
Yeah.
Like, you probably have veterans to, like, I don't know what teams you really, like, all of you worked on.
It's
I assume it was a lot.
It's incredible.
It's really where are you guys?
Can you actually, like, say, all of you, like, what actually
What we worked on?
Yeah.
Let's see. What did you? Star Wars Galaxies, an unannounced MMO inside of Ensemble, Age of Empires 3, Halo Wars, Orcs Must Die, Hero Academy, Words with Friends. An unannounced MMO prototype inside of Riot a long time ago, Wild Rift, and then now this.
Obviously, I'm not this big, but like, I mean, I worked on. Yeah, I know, no kidding.
Time to flex, God.
Yeah, exactly. Let him flex. Like, it's good. I mean, I worked on League of Legends for like almost a decade. I worked on Call of Duty before that, and a bunch of, smaller, kind of AA games for a while before that.
But it can't be understated how important it is to have people who like know everything about the history of our players and the IP. Yeah. Like, that's massive, in many ways more important than like a bunch of different games.
Oh God, many years, many different things. So many. Legends of Runeterra. Let's see. Sims. I've worked on the Sims for many years. Some other MMOs. Some old ones, like one that eventually got out, Gods and Heroes, back in the day.
I don't know what that is.
And yeah, and like a number of small projects.
Right. Yeah. And most of my stuff before here, I've been here for 9 years. I was working freelance for quite a lot of years, writing books and doing things like that, doing some world building here and there for different games. And then most of my background before that comes from like tabletop. So like I worked at Games Workshop, so I was a games designer and a writer and an art manager.
I mean, for writers, it is literally like, it doesn't matter how much experience you have like outside of the thing. You sort of, if you just know the world inside out, that's sort of already completely invaluable. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Over there and working on like Warhammer 40k, that kind of stuff. That was my sort of kickstart into the industry, really.
One of the things that I love most about this team, other than the fact that they're huge dreamers and like have massive ambitions, is that everybody has had their story in the games industry, which means nobody has the chip on their shoulder. Right? Everybody is like, whatever is the right thing to do for the game, whatever is the right thing to do for players. There's not conversations about ego or identity or my idea or your idea. It's just like, how do we make the best thing? Right. And that is the most refreshing thing I've ever experienced at a game team. I'm surrounded by people smarter than me, and that's just like the best. It's so cool. Which is good, because this challenge is huge.
Oh yeah. You can't get, you honestly can't go bigger than an MMO.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like developing an MMO, there's a reason why no one's doing it.
That's actually just the biggest genre.
Yeah.
You can probably tackle.
And so we put on like one of the IPs that has the most expectations.
Oh yeah.
As well.
Oh,
yeah.
Like no pressure.
No pressure. Literally, probably one of the biggest esports franchises now is getting an MMO by one of the biggest companies, gaming companies in the world. Yes.
It really is.
Let's go.
And it's been announced now.
All right. Well, that was a really awesome interview where we did actually get some answers. We had
Trying not to get fired.
more than I expected, so I really do appreciate all of you. And I'm gonna do some funny editing, and I'm just gonna cut it off so you can just say goodbye.
Bye.
Okay, that was a really good video. I mean, obviously it's very far off, right? So we know basically nothing about it yet. Is there something else, or is this just? Oh no, this is the outro. Yeah. All right. I mean, they answered as much as they could, right? So I guess it's good to see that they're actually like super excited about actually developing it and everything like that, and that it's still, you know, it hasn't been canceled. That's like the biggest thing, right? It's not like, oh, we developed a prototype, realized that it's going to cost $100 bajillion, and 14 people sacrifices, and now we've canceled it. So you know that's good to hear. That it's still in development. If it's good, and if it comes out before I die, then I will play it a lot. That is basically what that comes down to. I'll link it in chat. Give him a like, give him a sub.